Great to see you, Geoff.
Yeah, great to see you too, Linda.
Thank you. So after our chat the other day, and when we were talking, I was sharing my new marketing statement and possible new tagline of take back control and helping people to realign their head and their heart and come from an authentic place, but also to feel self-empowered in the choices and the decisions that they make, so that it comes from a heart space and it comes across as authentic and real. And our nearly 2-hour phone chat opened up a whole Pandora's box of discussions and opportunities, that everything that we were talking about was so profound. So then we decided to actually do a Zoom recording and recap on what we were talking about and just have a conversation, so that we can share this discussion with many other people who'd like to have a listen. So
yeah, because I think the key thing where we started was, yes, you said, control, that sort of thing, but it was more of like, where are people at these days? It was where it went to, and I think that's where it got interesting, because I think we've all been through the ringer with the pandemic in different ways. A lot of people in Melbourne have been in lockdown. A lot of people in Queensland have had not a lot of impact from it because they've only had to wear masks occasionally. Bit different now, but so I think people are in a lot of different places, and I think a lot of people are questioning what's been going on and what that means for their lives.
Exactly. And every city is experiencing a different situation, and then every country is experiencing a different situation, with the tsunamis, happening, and the flooding, and, all these natural disasters. So it's very interesting what's happening on the whole planet energetically, and also how people are coping with that added stress and their lives, things just completely being taken away, and then one minute, they're getting on with their day, and next minute's like, okay, shut down, lockdown, or everything's flooded, or there's a lot of energy that's moving around the planet. And one of the areas that I love to help people is, the only thing that we can control is how we react and respond to the external world. And so something that I talk about in my presentations is, because I'm from a boating family and I've been in a lot of very rough weather on the boat, cyclone weather, and weather is something, you can't control. And I remember this one year, pretty much we had to take a group out to this island, and we were on holidays with my dad, but for some reason these people were dead set in going to the island. No other boat would take them out because it was cyclone weather. So I think Dad did a favor, picked these stranded people up off the wharf, loaded all their stuff, and we steamed out to this island. We were basically a submarine all the way out. You couldn't see the horizon. You couldn't see. There was just these huge waves just coming over us. And so I use that analogy because regardless of what is going on in the external world, and it could be just, avalanches of waves, though my dad knew that we would get to our destination. And this is what I use. We all have an internal GPS, and sometimes we need to just recorrect and get back on course to reach our goals, reach our destination. And that's something that we can constantly keep navigating as we're moving through life. So with the pandemic and the natural disasters and everything that's happening on the world, it's about each individual coming back to their heart center and how in alignment do they feel right now. Because, you know, if they're getting caught up in the turbulence of the external world, that can completely throw them out of balance, out of alignment. And then that will lead to sleepless nights and lots of stress, and then may lead into mental health, and it's a dominoes effect. So,
yeah, love the analogy around the storm and the weather, because I think that's kind of exactly what's going on right now. We're going through a storm. We've been through a storm, and the storm comes and goes. And there are things like that that we don't have any influence over, let alone control over. But I just hear it as the popular words are, I want to take control, or I want to be in control. And it's kind of like, I don't think it's very useful to be talking like that sometimes, because we're basically not in control of that much. But as you said, we're actually in control of how we respond to something. So maybe that's everything. You know, I can't control the weather, but I've actually got control over how I respond. So maybe that's bigger than what the weather is. I don't know.
And yes, the external world and what's going on, we have no control in, but it's how we feel in the moment and the emotions that come up. Because if you're, for example, listening to the news and it's just like all this negativity, and what that does for an individual is brings up all this fear, and then all the anxiety, and then all the other emotions. And so with the law of attraction, what you focus on, you get more of. So if you're feeling anxious and feeling fearful and scared, well, then you're putting that energy out there, and it's not only affecting your environment, your family, and everyone around you, but you're putting that energy out to the planet. And that's where the mass consciousness of every being here on the planet needs to take responsibility for themselves and what they and how they respond, and have more love and compassion for themselves as well as everyone else, because everyone else is at different stages of their spiritual growth, their personal growth, and they may be reacting or responding differently to yourself or whatever. And it's about, you know, holding the space for those people, no judgment, and just shining your light enough to pick up the energy, and help those people to see things from a different perspective, or help them to come back to calm and relaxed, and just reminding them that it will all work out. Everything, you know, will settle down, and just to have faith and trust. Yes, it's a lot of crazy stuff going on. And there's a lot of unfortunate situations and circumstances and events, and where some people have actually left the planet. So this is where the community can really come together and support one another, and just keep each other going, that we will all get through this. Because the amazing thing is, we all chose to be here on the planet at this time, and what we're experiencing, it's like we put up our hand and went, you know what, I want to have this life, because that, you know, on some soul level, we knew that all this was going to happen. And so what we're experiencing is so much personal growth and for our soul and our consciousness.
Yeah, I think one of the big things that I've noticed in my conversations is that people are a lot more attuned to what's going on around them. So even in the supermarket, it's like people giving each other space, which never happened before. It was just kind of you busted through and get out of my road. Where now people are a little bit more aware of that. But I think also we've had a bit more awareness about what's going on around the planet. So we look at the UK and go, oh my God, they're not going so well today. The US, oh my God, they're going even worse. We're actually doing okay here. Oh, New Zealand, maybe they've got it better than us. And there is this, not necessarily always a good thing to just keep comparing yourself to others, but at least it gives us an awareness of other people and what's going on. I think that's the first level, I'd say.
Yeah, reference point.
Yeah, absolutely. And also we kept looking through history trying to find, oh, where has this happened before? And we didn't really have a reference point to say, oh, this is just like last year, because that didn't happen. And that's been a real challenge for a lot of people.
That's right. Yeah, because this is, I mean, there's been different diseases over the years in the last, you know, century, but nothing that's actually shut the whole world down.
Yeah.
And that's what's brought up a lot of emotion for a lot of people.
Well, I think most of us, we never considered that. Like if we look at SARS and those other similar viruses over the last at least 10, 20 years, they kind of shut down parts of the world, but it didn't affect us, so they weren't a big concern. Whereas, and even for myself, I never had it that I'd read that we were expecting pandemics, and they're expecting more pandemics in the next 10 years or 20 years because of that interaction between more people, more mobility, all that sort of stuff. But I never once sat there and thought, oh yeah, we'll be in lockdown. And the dawning of something was different was happening was when they shut the borders for Australia. And it's like, oh, they're actually serious about this, aren't they? This is actually going to become something. So it was a real shock that way to try to read what was going, and it was so unpredictable. Mm-hmm. And our whole sense of certainty changed in that moment because we pretty much could, because it was ironic that it was also at the start of the year. So we kind of sit down at the start of the year and we plan, I want my year to be like this, and then I want this to happen, I'm going on this holiday and so forth. And yet by February, we were kind of like, oh, my plan for the year, wrap it up in a ball and throw it over your shoulder, get a new one. And it was kind of very interesting for people to be shocked by that. Yeah. And the realization that I actually can't do what I wanted to. And it's like, oh, hang on, that's not fair. And then we realized we're actually in a bigger storm than we realized, rather than just about being holidays.
Yeah, I remember a Zoom call I was on, and they said, the business plan that you wrote at the beginning of the year, just throw it away, screw it up, throw it away, because it's not going to happen. Everything's changed, though everyone seemed to pivot very quickly, and a lot, you know, through all that change. And you know, change is something that people often struggle with. Even when their life is not working for them, they struggle to change. So the whole pandemic is actually being, you know, a silver lining for a lot of people, to become more resilient and stronger in themselves. And also to take time out, you know, to really go within, and all the things that they were doing before completely stopped, and they had to sit and meditate, or, you know, have quiet time. So that's the silver lining and the blessing, because it's actually force people to go within and really look at themselves and look at what they choose to change in their lives, and and what needs to change in order to be.
Yeah, definitely a blessing and a curse in that sense, isn't it? It's that old Chinese saying, you know, that change or opportunity is blessing and a curse. And I think that's it. It was kind of an opportunity that was given to us, but whether we wanted to take it was a different question.
Exactly. So, and that's the choice that everyone has. You know, you can choose to do something, or you can choose not to. And either way, it's okay. It just depends on where you're at and what inner guidance are you following.
Yeah, I think that's a really crucial point, because we're often looking at the external world as our cue of what we should do. So when the world's like that, it's like, oh, well, I'm going to have my holiday in Bali, thank you. And then all of a sudden that's shut down. It's like, well, where do I go for my reference about what do I do here? And as I hinted at before, it's like we didn't really have a historical, you know, oh, last time this happened, we just. So I remember growing up as kids, we used to occasionally have maybe a power strike or something. And it's like, oh, Mum, what are we doing a power strike? Oh, well, last time we went to the cupboard and we got the candles out and we put the candles out. And it's like this time around, it's like, oh, what did we do in the last pandemic? Oh, actually, no one really was alive when the last pandemic was on, when the Spanish flu was happening, you know, 1910, 1920. So we didn't have a reference point. And I think that's where we got a shock. We were looking for what, and I think it was also trying to make some meaning around it, as in, what does this actually mean in terms of the implications for me in my life, as well as what does it mean in terms of the opportunity it presents. So it's both sides of that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And when everything is shut down and you're in lockdown, well, that's where it's like you go within, you know, it forces people to go within. It's like, okay, what's next? What's my next immediate step? And that's where meditation is so important, because really it's just between you and your higher self or source or whatever word, you know, resonates with you. And it's like, okay, where do I go from here?
Yeah, I think a big one around that is, so I've done a lot of research around minimalism and happiness and all that sort of stuff. And pretty much what it comes down to, in the way I saw it, was that there's two types of happiness. One's the hedonistic external happiness. So if I go to the pub and hang out with my mates, or my football team wins, then I can be happy for that. The problem with that is it's not very long lasting. And so when we rely on that, or we live that way by buying clothes or having a holiday and having these things determine whether we're happy or not, when a pandemic comes along, we're in deep trouble. The other one is really that internal eudaimonic, I think is what it's called, eudaimonic happiness, where it basically just comes from within, and you're happy because you're happy. You know, you don't actually need a reason. So the people that have had their lives geared around, I have to go to the shops to buy those new clothes, and I have to have my holidays, and I have to hang out with my friends, and I have to go to the football, and I have to have all these things to determine that A, I was happy, and B, I was successful in life, all of a sudden got slapped in the face, and they realized, well, oh shit, now I'm unhappy. This is not very fair. And that presented a real flaw to the way that they were approaching their life.
Mm-hmm. And comes back to what's really important.
Yeah, that's it.
What's important in your life? You know, you may be married and you got, you know, wife, husband, kids, dog. All of a sudden you're all under one roof and you get to spend quality time together and redefine your goals.
Yeah.
Together as a family, and looking at your values and what's important. And that was a big wake up for a lot of people.
Well, the one I kept hearing, and this is partly because I was hanging around business people, and the people I would work with, was they typically would get up in the morning, go to work, come home, and then have to deal with the family then. So they kind of had this escape clause in their life that it's like, oh, I don't have to deal with family. My wife or my partner, they'll look after that. Right. And I can do that. But when everybody started hanging around at home, you know, work at home, all of a sudden the whole, what is the house? What's our interaction? Oh my God, I'm seeing too much of you. I wish the dog would shut up. Can't those kids be going to school? And it was kind of, it just got out of control. And I think that was like, again, another slap in the face. And I think the key from a meditation point of view is that it's about, you'll actually learn to be with stuff. You learn to be with your thoughts or your emotions or your feelings. Whereas a lot of us were pretty well trained in just fobbing them off. It's like, I don't want to watch that. I'll just change channels or whatever. But the reality was when, particularly in Melbourne, when we had lockdowns and stuff, you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't escape.
No.
And for some people, that was a rude shock.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like the whole rug was just pulled out from underneath you. And it was a big wake up call for a lot of people. So how did you cope through the lockdown?
Mixed. It was very mixed for me. So the lead into it was I'd been house sitting around Australia. So I'd been traveling around. And then when it happened, I was up in Buderim in Queensland, and the people whose house and dog I was looking after, they were over in Italy. No, not Italy. They were over in Ireland. And pretty much as soon as the borders started to close and then they started coming to say, oh, we're coming home. And it just went ding, 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 ding for me that, hey, this house sitting thing is not going to work for too much longer. And it was kind of like, oh, I better go home. And home meant, oh, I better go back to mum and dad's place. And dad had been struggling with dementia. And so right at that time, when I came home, my mum was struggling with it. So we put dad into an aged care centre for respite for my mum. But when the pandemic hit, it was kind of like, well, actually, dad can't come home now. It doesn't make sense because he's actually safer there. And then it became, because his dementia got worse, he actually stayed there. And then I finished up staying home and basically caring for my mum. And it was kind of like, holy shit, that wasn't part of my plan. And the shock is that I'm still here 2 years later. So my dad passed away last year, and that was kind of a relief because he'd really been struggling. And the struggle for him was really interesting because he effectively went into the aged care centre right at the start of the pandemic. So he actually had no experience of the pandemic in the shops or people wearing masks or whatever. Plus with the dementia, he was a little bit confused and not really that clear about what was going on anyway. So it was kind of weird. We'd turn up, so some of the experiences I had was we could not see dad. So we went into this home for 7 weeks and we couldn't see him or talk to him. And
Really?
because he didn't want to talk on the phone, it was like 7 weeks. It's like, wonder what the hell's going on for dad here. So that was kind of the extreme version of the exclusion side of thing and visitation and all the rest of it. And then it got to the point right in the middle of winter in Melbourne, freezing cold and all the rest of it. We actually had to stand outside and talk through a window to him. And dad's whole conversation was, why don't you just come in and stop this nonsense? And it's like, can't we just shut the window because it's cold? And it was just like he had no sense of what was going on. Yeah. Then we'd actually go and see him and we'd have our masks on. And he'd say, I can't understand you. Just take that silly bit of cloth off. And he just had no sense of what was going on. And that was kind of partly my experience of how's mum coping with this and how's dad coping with this and where's Geoff left in this? And for me, it was funny around the planning. I think I made about 10 plans, and I think for the year, the first year in 2020, I think one lasted about a month. I'll throw that one away. Next one might have lasted 2 weeks. Throw that one away. Next one, it was like, oh, I can't be bothered planning for the next couple of months, so I didn't do anything. And so it was definitely like that. And seriously, on the one hand, I was aware that this was like a fantastic opportunity. I was able to get some money from the government. I didn't actually have to earn a lot of money. I was staying with my mum looking after her, so I didn't have a lot of the bills. And it's like, oh, this is a God-given opportunity to do almost anything. But the reality was I didn't do anything. I did bugger all. And I think that's where the emotions, the mood, I just didn't have the drive to plan. And partly the change of plans was I thought, oh, this is a good opportunity. And then the world would change. It's like, that opportunity is not there anymore. Oh, this is a good opportunity. And it was kind of like that. So I think I was in the year of the stutter. You know, it's like, and then I'd stop. And then it's like, and then I'd stop. And okay, that's how I kind of survived. I don't think it was pretty. And I think I kind of wasted the opportunity that was there. And it was simply because I probably had too much going on around me with dad and mum and bloody being at home again. It was just like I didn't plan on any of that. So it was tough.
Yeah. Well, what was your biggest learning through that time?
I think it was exactly what we were just saying about the happiness, and actually just coming back to, it's like, okay, what are the things that I can control and influence here? And where's my source of happiness? And trying to bring it back to what are the habits, the practices, the rituals, the meditations, what are the things I can actually do here that keep me, what would I say? Keep me going, keep me alive, keep me happy, make this be okay. Because there was a whole bunch I couldn't influence. And seeing my dad decline in front of me wasn't great. Seeing mum worried about him wasn't great. Me struggling with, well, what's my life look like now? And I think that was the microcosm for all of us. We kind of got slapped in the face. And then it was like how quickly we adjust. And then it was that I was very present to where am I getting my happiness and satisfaction from? And that was probably the biggest lesson that I started to look deeply at it rather than just intellectually at it.
Yeah. And it's a sense of fulfillment each day, feeling that sense of fulfillment, like I've achieved, this today, or having some kind of something to be grateful for at the end of the day. So
I think that's actually what it came back to, that partly me not pursuing my plans was partly out of, I just didn't have the drive, the emotional space to actually do it. But I also realized that wasn't where the joy was, because that can be the same merry-go-round where you're just trying to achieve stuff. Whereas ultimately, and this is what I think is the core of meditation, is you can actually just sit there with all your shit flying around you and actually be okay with it. It's a bit like you and your dad in the boat. You can actually just sit there calm in the boat and have the wildness of the storm blow around you. And that's actually where freedom and happiness come from. The rest of it's kind of bonus money territory, but that's not where the happiness, whether I get my jobs done today or tomorrow, that's something else. That's not, I can be happy regardless of whether I get them done. And that's kind of an interesting space when you talk to people, particularly in business, when they're so geared up around productivity and, getting from A to B and kicking those goals and all that sort of stuff. It's just such a different mindset.
And deadlines and all the company targets and keeping the shareholders, at bay or keeping them happy. And so, lots of different situations. But you're spot on with just coming back to your peace and joy and happiness that you feel within yourself, because the list of tasks will always be there.
Yeah.
And
kind of the way it was said to me that I remember someone saying many years ago, it's like a 7-year-old kid. They go to their mate and they go, I'll race you down to the end of the block, and whoever gets there first is the world champion. And while you're racing down the block or playing football or whatever it is, you're playing absolutely 100% with everything you've got. And then when you get down there and you go, yay, I won. And then you forget about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, that's the duality of some kind, that it's being in the moment, giving it all you've got when you know it actually doesn't matter. And that's kind of a weird conversation.
Well, it reminds me of the movie Dan Millman, The Peaceful Warrior. That's it. And remember when he's with...
I haven't seen the movie. I do know who he is, but I haven't seen it.
The Socrates and anyway, they're climbing up this mountain, and so the master was guiding him up this mountain to show him something. And so he was so excited and all the way up, hiking up this mountain, just super excited. What's at the top? What's at the top? And then they get there and he goes, well, what is it? What? And the master just points down and points to a rock, and he went, "What? We've climbed all this way just to see a rock?" And he was so disappointed and so, like, oh my God. And the master's message was, but look how excited you were all the way up, to the top of the mountain. So it's all about our journey and how we're feeling along the way. And so we can approach every single situation or goal, be really excited, put that enthusiasm and feel joyful and happy about aiming for that goal, regardless of the outcome, because things change all the time. But we're all on a journey on this life, and things change. And it's like, another analogy I use is stay up on your surfboard and you'll have so many wonderful adventures and fun times. It's when you come off the surfboard and get plummeted with the waves and then hit the sand, and that's when, it's like, ouch, that hurt. But again, it comes back to your resilience to get back on the surfboard and continue to have those adventures, because really life is all an adventure.
Well, again, it can be if we frame it that way. And I think that's the opportunity or the possibility that I agree with you. It's just like, I guess it's like a lot of these things become cliches, it's like, oh, enjoy the journey. It's all about the journey, not the destination. Mm-hmm. But the reason these stories or these phrases keep occurring is because they've got a deeper truth to them, that we can be flippant about some of this and just go, oh yeah, you're going to fall off your surfboard, get back on, or fall off your horse, get back on the horse. And I think they're useful. But the reality, when you look at these so it's kind of like, I follow a lot of the Buddhist approaches to stuff. And there's some deeper wisdom around some of these things, but we can also deal with them at a superficial level. So I've started saying to my coaching clients around business, it's like, the goal's important. And the bigger goal is, who are you becoming through pursuing the goal, not whether you achieve it. And of course, that's a bit strange for a lot of them, because it's all about, no, this is about business. I'm paying you money to get me to there. I don't want to become Joe Blow along the way. That's kind of bonus money. And it's like, well, yeah, both are relative here. But the real thing that you're going to look back is, if you want to do that classic other cliche of when you die and you look back at your life, what are you going to see? It's like, well, you're going to be proud of who you became, not the things you did.
Absolutely. And that's what I say to my clients as well. It's like, who are you being? How are you showing up in the world? What energy are you bringing when you show up, or how you interact with others, or how you respond to others, and how you treat others? And so one of my clients who is in customer service, and she said, customers are so rude and and angry, and so I said to her, well, if you just come across as happy and joyful and smile at them and approach it like, it's like, treat them long best friend, long time no see, and it's like, what can I do for you? And then the whole energy changes.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got their own stories going on in their mind, and bless you.
That's happened yet. It was coming. It just never quite got here.
Well, do you know, sneezes are like a confirmation?
Oh, are they?
Yes. And that actually reminds me of another topic. When I was living in the US, and this was, I lived there from 2010 for 7 years. And it was in 2011 that I met this teacher, facilitator, amazing person, and in mastery systems, and all about the conscious language, the words that we speak, which is really relevant. But then we also did a lot of energy work and the matter electronics and the body electronics, and shifting the energy in our body just by holding points, but focusing our attention on those points. And everyone who was, because when you held the point, and if you know the acupuncture points around the body, if you press really hard on those points, it's like, ouch. But the idea was that you had 12 people around the table all sending you love. And even though it was like a bit ouch, if you could receive that love and open yourself up to receive that energy and that intention, everything dissolved so quickly. And so there were some people on the table that were like kicking, screaming, swearing at the top of their voice. And Bob would let them go for a bit and just keep reminding, receive the love, receive the love. And if they kept going, it's like, get off the table. You're not ready. You're not ready to receive. It's like, hold on to your pain and stay in that suffering, stay in that struggle, and next person get on the table. So that's a bit like in our life, is we can choose to shift the energy. You know, if we're feeling a pain, this can be a physical pain or emotional pain. How long do we want to sit in that pain for? How long do we choose to struggle and suffer?
That's why people run away and don't want to sit with it.
Exactly. Yes, because it's like, oh, scary, you know, and that's where the fear comes up. So
that was kind of why so many people, in my opinion, were scared inside of lockdown. Yes, they're disconnected from people, so that they didn't have that outlet release valve kind of thing as well. But it was kind of like they were forced to be with themselves. And it's like, for some of us, it's not very pretty.
And that brought up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And it was forced. It's like, you know, here's all your stuff that you need to deal with. And that's when, you know, the mental illness was on the rise, depression, suicide, you know, because people looking at their stuff, because it was, they were like looking at it, going, it smells, it, you know, it hurts, but that was the silver lining, actually, to force everyone to really go within and look at what needs to change in your life and clear those blockages. You know, this is what one of my programs is all about, is clearing, you know, the old patterns, the old paradigms, the programs, the emotions, the beliefs and behaviors and habits, and who you were being, and what and how you were showing up in the world, and what's not working for you, and where in your life do you feel stuck. And so when we're alone and in lockdown, it's like, whoa, you know, I have to look at this, because the outside world can be a mirror, or different relationships and interaction can be a mirror, but it's also, well, they can be a mirror and shine on, you know, what our triggers are. But when we're alone and unable to have that physical interaction, that was a big challenge for a lot of people.
Have you noticed a change in the last month? Like Queensland's obviously had a different path to Melbourne or Sydney and some of these other places. What have you noticed in the last month?
A lot of fear. Yeah. Fear, scared, angry, and frustrated.
Who are they directing the anger at? What are they angry at?
Well, it's more just say a cafe, and because I popped into this cafe that we regularly go to, and I said to the owner, "How are you?" And she went, "I've got no staff, I've got no customers, and then she was just on this rant.
Yeah.
And I just said, just trust this too shall pass, just hang in there. But she was up to here with what do I do? And so she's not the only one, because when Brisbane, actually started Christmas, New Year, and then all of a sudden, COVID was spreading throughout the community, and then a lot of people were scared to go out, scared to go to the gym, even though the gyms are still open, scared to go anywhere. So even though they weren't sick and they didn't need to isolate, they were staying at home out of fear.
Yeah, there's been a few reports in the last couple of weeks that are saying this is our third lockdown. And while there's no official lockdown, all the stats around traffic, spending, visitations, that sort of stuff, mobility, people in the city, all those things are actually below what they were during lockdown, or about the same level. So we're actually in another lockdown, even though we have permission to be out, but we don't want to be out.
And my philosophy is that if you keep your energy vibration high, that automatically keeps your immune system strong. You automatically become resilient to colds, flus, viruses, or any germs out there. But to be living in fear, if you look at the emotional scale of where fear sits, it vibrates at 100. If you're looking at the Hawkins scale, the emotional scale goes from 0 to 1,000, and love is only at 500. So fear is sitting at 100. So every time you feel fear, well, guess what happens to your energy vibration? You spiral down.
Yeah.
That's where you're sitting. And to go out and just say, okay, I'm going out shopping, or I'm going to, and it's like you hype yourself up. But if there is just 1% of fear or doubt, well, that just eliminates all your positivity.
Which is kind of the power of authenticity. So that 1 ounce of fear in a bucket of optimism or hope actually leads to hopelessness.
Yes.
There's an old expression, maybe not a pretty one, but a drop of pee will spoil any soup. And it's kind of, the same thing. The soup might be fantastic, but it wouldn't take much of one little flavour to actually spoil the taste of all of it.
One drop of poison, one drop of anything in that's toxic, completely ruined. Yeah. So
I think that's where people did struggle, because their old way was to push through it. And pushing through it meant, oh, I'm scared, but I'm going to do this anyway, but I'm really scared.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. When I moved to California, it was 2010, and as you know, the GFC had just hit. So 2009 was a big scary year for a lot of people, and then I decided in 2009 to move to the US. And when I got there, I realized that, wow, because Australia wasn't really affected, but over there, a lot of people, their houses were foreclosed. They were in desperation, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. And I just went with all this energy and to uplift, and they thought I was crazy.
We all think you're crazy, Linda.
So, yeah, they just thought, oh my God, how can you think like this or be like this? And I went, don't worry, everything will be okay and we will get through this. Well, they did get through it, and it took a couple of years. And that's what I'm reminding people of now. We will get through this situation as well.
Well, we've got through it so far. It might not have been pretty, it might not have been what we wanted, but here we are. We've got through it so far.
Exactly. And that old saying is, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And also, it's not what happens to you, things happen for you. So what are you learning in the process? And again, how are you being with everything that's going on, and showing up, and how are you interacting with your brothers and sisters around the planet, and having, are you judging them for what they're doing, or have love and compassion for them? Because every situation and every individual case is different. Especially
yeah. And what do you think we need going forward? More of that probably, but
moving forward, it's about well, this comes back to taking back control, right? What we're in control with is how we react and respond to things, and how we feel,
how we show up,
and then what emotions are coming up for us. And so when we can look at things from a completely different perspective and outlook, and just trust that we're being protected, we are all safe, and the universe has got our back. And so that it's like we will all get through this, and we will come out much stronger. But this is about mass consciousness on the planet. And the next few years is forcing people to wake up, forcing people to look at the ugly, thing in front of them. and yeah, it's like it's staring at you in your face. So how do you react or respond or feel about that? And when you make peace with it, well, then it's like, oh, you're not so ugly anymore. And why was I so scared of you all these years? Why was I so fearful about looking at you? Really, you're part of me, and I embrace it, and I'm at peace with that now.
One of the things I've done over the last 6 months or so is actually shift my focus, because what I used to always be doing was looking for short-term results. And I decided to commit to doing a weekly video on YouTube, knowing that it would take me at least 12 months, a couple of years, to actually get the traction that I wanted. And it's actually been really helpful to go, okay, that's not important. I just have to get the video out. And each week I'm just getting the video out. But being in that phase of playing long term and catching myself going, oh, the statistics don't tell me where I'm going. It's like, no, just do the process, just play the game for a long period of time. And I think that's been very useful in this situation, because if I stayed in that short term, I'd be trying to predict and anticipate and run over there while there's a chance, and then run back over there and so forth. But by focusing on those things, what do I need long term, has actually given me a much better foundation and a much stronger sense of comfort and support and ease about what I'm up to. And I think a lot of people, I guess, since I've made that shift, I'm noticing it in others. They're still chasing those short-term, almost reactionary responses to stuff and not building that bigger foundation for whatever the future or whoever they become over a longer period.
Exactly. So it's about being the pioneer, being the example for others to follow. You can see all these people scurrying around, oh, I need this, I need that, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you just hold the space and you're doing the consistency and just building that foundation, and regardless, just keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's the same with my work, keep doing what I'm doing, regardless whether people think that I'm crazy. And it's I've always been the pioneer, just leading the way for people to see things from a different perspective and a different outlook, and have faith and trust. And so that's pretty much, how I've lived my whole life. And sometimes, you can't plan things, things happen and it's like, whoa, okay, another learning opportunity, and where do I go from here, or why did I experience this situation or whatever. So when we never stop learning in life, it's about, okay, what is the learning from that, because everything is a blessing when we look at the big picture. And where I tested this when I was backpacking around the world, in my early 20s. I was gone for 3 years and backpacking by myself, and nearly killed so many times.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And yeah, a lot of different scary situations. And I just had to deal with it at the time. And it's like, whoa, okay, how do I get out of this? And what's my next immediate step? So do I regret all those experiences? No, because it's made me stronger with who I am. So this is where it's like, people putting themselves in cotton wool and living this sheltered life. It's like, go out and live life, and if you do catch COVID, your body's immune system will recover, and it's a 99% recovery rate. Recently I was out on my brother's boat over Christmas, and we were anchored at Lady Musgrave, and then we went to Lady Elliot and had a quick snorkel. And for some reason it's the ocean, right? So there's stingers and jellyfish, and we went to have a look at the manta rays, and so I was stung by this jellyfish, and came up in a rash, and so, but no one else was, we're all swimming in the same water. And so it was like, oh, and anyway, my brother's analogy was, well, if you're going to, get in the water, there's a chance, you'll either be eaten by something, stung by something, or swept away. So that's the risk you take. And you survive at the end, Yeah. So
well, I think that's it. It's like, it's risky to stay in bed kind of thing. If you actually look at the stats, apparently more people die in bed than anywhere else. And that's because they have heart attacks or strokes or whatever they do. But more people die. If there's one place that you're actually most likely to die, it's actually going to bed. But it doesn't mean you're going to die when you go to bed tonight, or it might not even be you. But if you just want to look at pure situations, being in bed is not necessarily safe either.
Well, and when your time's up, or when you choose to go and choose to leave, this body, this planet, well, that's a soul choice that you make, you know, and you can call it a heart attack, you can call it lots of different things, though when you're ready to go, you're ready to go. It's like your soul just leaves.
Yeah.
So that's where, you know, a lot of people through this pandemic, you know, and yes, they might say, you know, they died of COVID, but that was kind of the last straw. But there was other underlying health issues or other challenges there. So
that was certainly our experience around my dad. It was just like, you know, he's struggling, he's not improving, he's not going to improve. And in the finish, I think he just said, I've had enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was actually a relief. It was probably a relief for him that he wasn't struggling, but it was certainly a relief for us. You know, I wish he was still here, but it was actually also a relief that he wasn't struggling anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, because dementia is one of those very unfortunate diseases that is just, yeah, horrible. You know, yeah. So what else would you like to talk about?
Haven't we covered the world and everything yet? Well, I guess for me, it's like I'm always looking at what's next and how do I go forward. And I think partly what I've learned, so for me, what was interesting around COVID in particular was that prior to that, I had so much uncertainty in my life. It was a bit like you with your travels, that I was house sitting, so I never actually knew where I was going to live in the next couple of months or the next week sometimes. And I was running my business and my cash flow was always like that. So I never knew what money I was doing. So to actually be put in the situation where I could come back and have this sensible life looking after my mum and being here with my mum was like, I've had more certainty in my life in the last 18 months than I have for a long period, because I had that money from the government, I had the safe place to stay and all the rest of it. So it's kind of been that funny thing of how do you look at situations as well? You know, so I know when I've spoken to people about the house sitting, some of them were truly scared for me. And I'm like, how are you going to do this? And what are you going to do in that situation? It's like, oh, I don't know, I'll sort it out when I get there kind of thing.
Figure it out along the way, exactly.
Yeah, and it does build a strength around dealing with uncertain situations. And it does come back to exactly what you said. It's kind of like, well, I know if I'm in a difficult situation, I'll find a way through it. And I think that agency or that capability or that sense of that is so important. And I think that's the key to coming through whatever that next phase is for now, whether it's COVID or whatever part of your life you're going into, is having that foundation to turn back towards, to go, okay, I can rely on these things. And in the same way, when I don't know what to do, well, I can actually work through that as well. I can ask for help, or I can pull back, or I can keep charging ahead, or I can do something. And I think that's one of the keys to life, is just having that sense of whatever happens, I can find a way through. And I think it's helpful to have that, what you've said a couple of times while we've been talking, it's like knowing that this is going to pass. So if it is difficult or a struggle, that we know at some point it's going to pass. You know, the storm with you and your dad in the boat, at some point the storm was going to stop. It might not be right now, but at some point it's going to stop.
And also trusting your inner guidance every step of the way. And any time where you're at a crossroads, it's like, just stop for a moment. Okay, if I go down that path, how does that feel? And if I go down this path, how does that feel? And really just trusting your inner guidance. This is, you know, why I help people to align head and heart. It's like when you can trust your feelings more than what your head's saying, and the logical and the analytical and the blah, 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 it's like you're trusting your gut, trusting your inner guidance, trusting your intuition, trusting your soul, you know, there's lots of different words that people resonate with. Some people go, oh, just trust your gut and make your choices that way. And what I've always said is, make the choices that make you feel strong, that make you feel good, because we're all come across those crossroads. And when you can actually trust, oh, I'm going this way instead. Well, why? Because it feels good. It feels right. And even if we make the wrong choice or decision, just trust that the universe will give us the best possible outcome from that choice. Again, we're not here to suffer or struggle. It's all an adventure. We're all here to learn and grow for our soul's evolution and for our growth. So when you ignore those messages from your inner guidance, from source, from your higher self, whatever you want to call it, that's when you're setting yourself up in those negative patterns, and you are creating, a disaster in your life. But you can avoid that disaster by making the choices way back here and what makes you feel good. So for a lot of people that are feeling that their life is out of control and going, oh, which way from here? Just stop and listen to that inner guidance, and align, head and heart, and making those choices, really getting in touch with your emotions, with your feelings, and that's your guidance system.
And I think it also helps to just frame it as, you don't need to know all the answers, you just need to know what's next.
Exactly, because it's a bit like, there's a lot of psychics. I've got a lot of psychic friends, and I know that one of my friends, she said at Christmas time, if she tuned in, she knows exactly every present under the tree and what's in there. But that takes away that takes away the excitement. So just be in the moment, and then you will constantly have these exciting adventures, and things will constantly just unfold, and it's like, fun, fun and spontaneity. If you knew every single thing that was going to occur, well, then it sets yourself up, because again, A, you could sabotage it, and then and B, it doesn't help you to grow. So it's better if you don't know. And that's where, when people go and have readings about, tell me my future. Well, it's like, stop, because the reader is only going to be reading what's the energy of the moment. Plus, you're the creator of your reality, and you get to create, and you can change your destiny.
So I think that's that human condition again, though, isn't it? We want certainty when there isn't certainty. And we kind of crave as if it's all going to, we're certainly craving that it's all going to turn out for the best. So we actually want that positive fairy tale answer.
And if everyone focuses on that fairy tale, well, then we're actually putting all that energy into that fairy tale and creating it and bringing it into reality. So it's better to just dream big and have that fairy tale, and we live happily ever after, and keep putting an energy into that, than the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I've just been so frustrated with the media and that, particularly recently. I think the Djokovic one really did me in. It's like, why is this whole country focused on one person who just happens to be a tennis player, which I wouldn't have thought was the most significant profession in the world. But why are we so focused on that? And I think it was partly we just wanted a distraction.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the federal government set that up, but I think that's where we need to choose our sources, and we need to choose what we're paying our attention to. And I think that's that principle of meditation again. It's like, what are we paying attention to right now? And it's kind of like, then we want to get ahead of ourselves and start paying attention to what's next. But really, there's only now.
Exactly. The power of now.
Life gets a bit easier at that point.
You know, Eckhart Tolle wrote, you know, the power of now. All we have is now. And really, if you just focused on the now, there's nothing to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. End. Done.
Yeah. And what I say to people is, when we get together, can we keep the conversation, like have like no COVID conversations? And that's something that when I was out on the boat with my brother, we didn't have, you know, the internet, phones, nothing. There was no TV. And so there was no news, and I don't watch the news anyway. I don't even have a TV, though. Even on, you know, there's a lot on social media and all these, you know, news flashes that keep popping up as notifications, which is a distraction, because then you give focus and energy and power to what you don't want. So completely unplugging. And while we're on the boat, there was no discussion about COVID.
Because it technically didn't exist.
No.
While you're on the boat, you weren't having any interactions with it. So therefore it didn't exist. Exactly.
And then when we went down to Straddie and anchored, you know, at Straddie, and there was about 5 or 6 other people with boats and all friends, you know, of my brothers, and then we all got together and just partied, and then there was discussions about what's happening on the mainland. All the dramas, you know, and the testing and blah blah blah, and it was like, wow, we're so removed. But it was, everyone was still having a fun holiday, and you know, it was like they weren't giving it energy, but even the discussion about it, you are giving a certain amount of energy to it.
I think that's our daily lives, isn't it? We get to see, you know, what are we focusing on, what are we putting our energy on, and a lot of it's not that important.
No. And when you're looking at everything that's going on, there's a lot of lies, a lot of untruths, a lot of corruption, a lot of manipulation, a lot of control, where they're, you know, wanting people to go down that rabbit hole. And so this is why I really, you know, empower people. Stop, listen to your inner guidance. What's your truth? Don't worry about what's going on in the external world, or all these people are saying, you know, X, Y, and Z. You can listen to it, but what's your truth? And if it doesn't resonate, well, you don't have to just join the herd and go, oh, that's the truth. And that's where there's, you know, well, what's happening on the world right now. People are going, wow, there's a lot of untruths that are all coming to the surface. And now they're realizing, you know, that there's a lot of corruption, and there's a lot of stuff that's been going on for centuries, like the pedophiles, the sex trafficking, you know, all the money and the greed and all the embezzling and all the corruption. I mean, all that's coming to the surface, and people are going, oh my God, how long's this been going on? Centuries and centuries.
Yeah.
So this is why I really encourage people to just come back to your truth, listen to your inner guidance, and And as long as you're plugged into source and your higher self, well, then you're not swayed either way. You know what feels right for you.
Yep.
So thanks, Geoff.
Oh, thank you. Great discussion. I think we've sorted out the world's problems and realised we don't have to actually deal with them.
So just go out, be happy, be jolly, be joyful, keep shining your light, open your heart, shine your love and light, uplift others, smile, and just be your happy self, because that will actually help to lift the energy vibration on the planet.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah. So many blessings. Thank you so much for your time. Always great to chat, and we will talk again soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. See you later. Bye.